Hey everyone, in this video we'll be working on our PHP Motors website. So in this one we have added 3 additional pages as well as a vehicles model and then a vehicles controller. So the first thing we want to do is go into our vehicles management page, and we'll do that by going up to the top and we'll enter in the vehicles folder, and that'll bring us automatically to our vehicle management page. And so one thing we want to do is check for the HTML first off here. Okay, looks like everything's checking out well. Everything's done complete. There's no warning signs, so we're looking pretty good. Okay, and then the next thing we'll want to check on that one is the CSS. Okay, looks like we're doing pretty good on the CSS as well. So coming back here, we'll go into these buttons. So we've created the buttons and they're tied through the controller. So anytime you click it, it's going to look for an action key, and it'll take it through this switch statement and then bring us to the proper pages. So if we hit the add classification button, it's going to take us to this new add car classification page. And you'll notice at the very top, you can kind of see the action add classification. So you know it's being run through our vehicle controller and then being processed through that. So first off, let's again check our HTML and our CSS. So within our page, it looks like we're doing pretty good with the HTML on this one as well. So we'll go back through and look at the CSS. Okay, looks like we're doing pretty good on the CSS as well. So coming back to the page, one thing that you'll notice is we do have the input menu right here. And what we're going to do is add a new car classification, and it's going to add it to the top menu bar. And what that kind of does is we've tied it to our vehicle model, and we have a create classification function. And it's going to run through this function, and it's going to take what we put into the input, and it's going to have some SQL, and it's going to put it into our database, and then basically run through the process, and then have it return to us under this variable classification list. And so what we'll do is we'll test it out first. So if you forget to put anything in there, if we have any issues, say you click the add classification, it's going to pop up this error. Please enter a classification and try again. So that looks like it's running properly. So we got a classification here. Let's do hot rod. So we'll put that in there and say add classification. So one thing you'll notice is it brings us back to the vehicle management page, and it'll give us a thank you for creating the hot rod classification. This will now be in our database. So for here, we've used a variable in order for anytime we put in a classification, it's going to give us whatever you enter in as that classification. And then real quick, let's go to the database here. And so going into the car classifications, you'll notice here we are. So that SQL that we've entered into our vehicle model has now entered it into our PHP Motors database, and now we have this new class of hot rod. So perfect. So now let's go to the add vehicle. And so clicking this button, one thing you'll notice, it'll kind of update and refresh, and now we have that hot rod within our menu bar. So that is now an option or a classification that we can choose from. And then looking at this site, this has also gone through the controller. You can see up at the very top it has the action equals add dash vehicle. So it is being thrown through the controller, and again going through that switch statement and processing it and finding that add vehicle key, and then presenting that website that we want it to show. And so in here we can add our vehicles, and we have a drop down for pick our classifications. And the cool thing about this is it has our drop down, and we can pick the classic, and it also has added our hot rod in there as well: sports, SUV, trucks, and used. So anything that's going to be created as a classification, put in our menu bar, it's also going to display in our classification drop down right here as well. So going through here, if we say we forget again that we put anything in, and say we hit add vehicle, it's going to give us this error. Please provide information for all empty form fields. So it wants to make sure that we put everything within our form to make sure it's going to function and operate properly. And so first off, let's check the HTML and the CSS on this page as well. So go through the HTML. Okay, perfect. Looks like everything's checking out properly. Looks like there's no warning signs or anything to display, so that's great. Let's go back to that and check out our local CSS. Okay, looks like we have no issues or anything found for the CSS as well, so that's perfect. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do, let's test the database and the form to make sure that it's functioning properly. So say, let's do like a sports car, and say let's do Toyota Camry, description, just put car, and then we've put some hard code for the image path, which that's automatically within our input right here, as well as the thumbnail path. So you'll notice that right there going to the no image PNG. And then the price, we'll just put that in stock 12, color blue. And then once that's all done and created, we can do add vehicle. And then it comes up and says, thank you for creating the Toyota. So again, we're using a variable in order to display to the user that this is exactly what they put into the field. And this will now show up in our database. So that's perfect. So if we come to our database, say we go to our inventory, let's check it out. Let's see if it placed it in there. So here we go right here. All right, so we got our Toyota. It's a Camry. We did our description as car. And then we hard-coded the no images PNG for both the thumbnail and the image. We have the 25,000, the color blue, classification 3. So it looks like that's running correctly here. So, and that's kind of it for the presentations as far as the pages go. Just a quick inner workings of the functions and everything here. So we imported all of the different modules and everything for this to work for our vehicle controller. We got our classifications, and then we have a function that it gets placed into the variable here, so we can run that vehicle's model function, so it can go through it and everything. And then basically go through everything. We set up our original menu bar, and then we have done the vehicle adder, which is the drop down, so it functions with the menu bar as well. Our switch statements goes into the messages if there's like any issues or anything with the form, and then the form error, and then valid. And then we have the case statement as well for an add vehicle, so we can do all of the variables and make sure that they function properly within these as well. And then we got another function for the new vehicle, which basically places all the data within those variables as well. And then we can check the outcome, the if statements, and then it'll give you the different the messages as well there. And then the model is just basically the classification of what we want to do to upload the classification entered into the add classifications page. It'll do it through SQL and upload it to our database. And then same thing with the vehicle adder. It'll do that for the dropdown as well. It'll add the new classification within the dropdown. And then we do have our database a new vehicle. And that'll basically go through this function and pull the data from each of those variables that were placed within our form, and then put it into our database with this SQL right here, inputting it into the inventory database, and then again just using the data from the variables in which we have that we entered into our form, and then run through the process, execute, and then it'll return back exactly what we need. So that's it for our video today, guys. So everything should be running and working properly, and that should be it for today. Thanks, guys.